Yes. Yeah. So I think that this became apparent to me quite recently. I mean, I've been really guarded with who I shared the footage with because out of respect to them, and I didn't want them to think that I was exploiting them or anything like that. And also because some of the reactions that I had, and I think they deserved more respect than people being so vile about them and aggressive, except anyway. But they I really do think that they've got my attention on purpose because they want me to help them to be more well known by other humans, and I don't know what for, but they do.
Yes, and many children see them too. About 75% of the world's children today are being born with etheric vision. And when your children talk with people and have daydream playmates, the chances are they are actually speaking to some of these people. Because these angels or angelic forces or nature spirits, as they're often called, will often make themselves seen.
Whatever it is, it looks every bit like a fairy and very little like anything else.
But seriously, it kind of looks like a fairy. Just kind of doesn't look like your standard moth.
I know that the paranormal is real. Listen.
But I wasn't going to make this video until I looked a little bit closer and I realized after it lands behind my bench, it disappears. And it just vanishes. And in fact, I went outside to look, to try to find it, to see if it was trash, to see if it was a bug, to see if it was a leaf, like trying to figure out what it could be, and it was gone. It just vanished.
What's that? Yeah. What's what? Yeah, look. Right up there. Insect or something.
Is that an insect? Let's have a look. What is it?
I don't know. Oh my god!
Ugh.
What happens to people who cut down fairy thorns?
Did you see it? Huh? Did you see it? Yeah, me and him saw it. What'd you see?
It was like a big creature.
A big creature?
Yeah, like around 10 feet tall.
I'm not going to BS you guys. One of my partners said they saw something fall out of the sky too, so that's why I'm kind of curious. Did you see anything land in your backyard?
The paranormal is real. Is it? The paranormal is real.
Welcome everybody tonight to Fascinating Fae. Tonight we're going across the pond to the UK to talk with Jem. Jem, how are you feeling today?
Yeah, I'm feeling very good. Thank you very much. Yes.
I'm happy to hear that. And I gotta say, the brief pre-conversation that we had totally fixed me up because I just came back from a very upsetting morning walk.
Oh, gosh.
It's not nothing too bad. Well, I don't know. Maybe it is bad. But here's what happened. I go for a walk every morning, and I have about like a 2-block radius that I pretty much stick to because of my mobility issues. And one of the places that I go every morning is this beautiful patch of blackberries. It's about the size of half a football field wide and about a football field long. And it kind of separates this big parking lot from the road. It's just kind of like one of those areas that like many people would consider undeveloped or just a patch of briar, you know? Mm-hmm. But to me, it's super special. I go stand next to it. It's 20 feet tall and it houses this big community of birds called brown waxwings. They're like back in there. They got like tunnels, the whole city back in this patch of briar. And I go to this place every day for all year. And so even in the winter, when there's no leaves on this briar and the only thing left on it is desiccated, dried out old blackberries. That's what sustains that population of brown waxwings. And all their nests are there. They're like basically directly associated with this patch of briars. And furthermore, just yesterday, I was there and I had the most wonderful experience, and I'm going to share it with you, and then I'll tell you why I'm upset.
Okay.
So I don't know if you know this or not, Jem, but bees take naps.
No, I didn't know.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I'm about to blow your mind.
Okay.
So bumblebees, you know, the kind that go and collect nectar, they take naps. And where they take naps is inside flowers.
Yeah.
So they're like busy out there doing their stuff, and then they're like, oh, all this like pollen collecting sure is tiring. I think I could go for a nap. And so they cozy themselves up into a flower and they just go to sleep. And
That's
they kind of like...
So cute.
It's so cute. It's so flippin' cute. They're like, I mean, I look at bumblebees up close and they're little furry dudes. They're basically like your pet cat. They're so fluffy.
Yeah.
I call them bumble floofs, you know, because they're so floofy. Yeah. And so yesterday, I kind of like, I have a hard time standing on uneven ground. So there's one spot I like to stand, and there's the briar patch is like sticking out from the road in this one spot pretty heavily. And so I can basically stand face to face with the briars, which is what I do. And I like to run my hands along the leaves, you know, feel their spikes and just like talk to this big bush. And the amount of song from the brown waxwings is unbelievable. I mean, these birds are trilling, they're chirping, they're like 3-part harmonizing.
Wow.
And there's like so many of them, and they're a very lively songbird. Like they just never shut up. And so when you go there, you can close your eyes, and even though you're basically like in an urban environment, all you can really hear is the buzzing pollinators and these birds losing their minds, just having fun, doing bird stuff, you know, etc. So yesterday I'm like standing there, and I go stand in my spot. I like to smoke pot after my walk. So I'm like, I'm going to go smoke a joint. I light up my joint, and I'm just like letting myself ease into things, you know, and like checking out the briar like I like to do, looking at all the details of stuff. And then I see this bumblebee basically right in front of me having a nap. And you can tell they're having a nap because they're in the flower, and they're kind of like all up in the pollen like a bee should be, you know. But if you look carefully, they're not doing anything. They're just totally still. And so I could tell this guy's having a nap, and his legs were all kind of like tucked in, and he was having a nap. And so I was looking at him having a nap, having a smoke, you know, and just like contemplating the joy of this moment, like hanging out with this napping bumblebee. He was very, very like bumblebee yellow, not pale, not tan. He was like bright yellow and bright black, and big and fat, like to the point where you're like, wow, how are you flying? Like you're a gigantic thing, you know? And so I'm looking at this little bee, and I'm just like, wow, this is so cool. And then I watch him wake up, and they wake up real slow. They like kind of wake up, and they kind of like, they're like, am I still a bee? And you can tell them, yep, I'm still a bee. Okay, cool. You know, and they kind of like flex their wings. And then what he starts to do is he starts to like, take his little front bee feet. They have 6 of them, right? Takes his front, and he's like reaching up and like floofing up his head fur. Like he's like, oh, let me just get myself nice and floofy before I fly. And then I watch him do it with his back legs, and he like kind of like runs them along his body, gets all floofy, you know. He's clearly like primping up his floof, you know. And then like I watched him do like a flight check, like he unflexed and flexed his wings, you know, moved his thorax, and then, you know, I kind of watched him like wake up and then fly off, and it was just magical. And it's like it's hard to catch when having a nap. The only other time this year I've seen one having a nap is in the Nootka roses right out on my balcony, and I just happened to catch it by chance as well, and that was really cool too. But so this morning I go for my walk, and I'm like, I use double canes, and I really look at where I'm stepping because I have spinal injury, so I have to kind of watch my foot, and so I'm walking, and I get to where I usually start to hear the brown waxwings, and something's wrong. I can tell the auditory, something's wrong. Like it doesn't sound right where I'm standing. And I look up, and the entire briar patch has been bulldozed to the ground.
What?
I know. I know. There's a development happening in this thing that's the big parking lot. And so the developer, in preparation for developing a building in this what's currently a big parking lot, has torn this down. And it's like bare earth with just like sticks, you know. And that's why I was late to get on this call with you.
Awful. That is, I have no words. That is so distressing.
It is awful. And I'm gonna carry on. The brown waxwings, I know these birds. They're like, I actually know like many of them by visual look. I can identify them because each bird is an individual, just like a person, right? And so sure. they're flying. Like, also, I'm known in the neighborhood for the guy that the birds land on, because I do feed so many of the birds that a lot of them land on me and just eat from my hand. And the brown waxwings, there's a couple of them that are brave enough to do that. Not all of them, just a couple. And so I come around the corner, I look at this, I'm like, oh my God. I walk up to it and I'm just like, it's like just that, I was just devastated. I was like, fuck, this fucking sucks. Like, why did this have to get down so completely? It doesn't make any sense. It's just like, it's, you know, someone's job, you know, hey, go clear that site up. We're going to start work. And they just looked at it like a bunch of blackberries and took it down. And they piled all of the material into this big heap in the middle of the parking lot. And so the brown waxwings are like flying all around and trying to land on the heap.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
It's so heartbreaking. And then they're landing in front of me because they know me.
They know you, yeah.
And I'm where I usually stand. And I'm going to start crying. But I mean, the look of distress on these little guys' faces and the look of saying to me, like, what the shit, bro? What the fuck? And I'm like, birds, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't even know.
that is just absolutely disgusting. I mean,
it's a shame. It's a real shame. And so I immediately thought of Bonnie and Therese, who were like, you have to like give a month's notice if you're going to go tear down trees and stuff to the Fae that live there.
Yeah.
And I thought like, what juxtaposition of experience to the very day before, hanging out with that sleeping bumblebee, having a nap. Mm-hmm. And just before he took off, I was like, okay, buddy, see ya. And just when I said that, I could tell he was about to take off, and he took off, you know, and he went and flew away. And then just to come and see that this morning, it was messed up. And so I said out loud, I said, all of the Fae that just got displaced, we're going back to my place, and you can live there. I got a waterfall view. You know, the owl shows up. He's your buddy. You know, like you can all come in. And I just walked real slow back to my place so they could all follow.
Yes.
And then my computer, when I went to go sit down to talk to you, started to do all sorts of weird stuff.
Oh, look, see, they obviously followed you then. They listened.
I don't know. I don't even know if I have credibility anymore, because like it feels sometimes to me that almost every episode experience comes along with some sort of high strangeness at this point.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about how it would appear that the world of podcasts about fairies, like real fairy encounters of present day, is basically threefold. The Modern Fairy Sightings podcast with Joe Hickey Hall, the Fairy Whispering podcast with Claire Sylvan Wand, and then myself, the oddball in Canada. The one guy too, which is kind of funny to me in its own way. But I'll also tell you, as I make that comment, that I have analytics, right? And I would like to say hello to the 82% of my audience that is female. Thank you all for listening, ladies. I really appreciate you. Really appreciate you listening. But like, just to underscore, I mean, I try to tell my buddy about, oh, this bush got torn down and I'm upset. He would look at me like I'm a wimp or something, you know? So I do appreciate being able to tell you, because it's heartbreaking. It's just absolutely heartbreaking that someone would take that down.
It is so. Yeah, I mean, in the UK, there would be planning notices on lampposts before anybody was allowed to do anything like that, and guaranteed there'd be protesters here stopping it. So it's such a shame that somebody's just done that.
It was pouring rain yesterday quite heavily, which is odd for June. And I didn't go out really after that morning. And that's when I saw the bee yesterday morning.
Yeah.
And if I had gone and seen that underway, you better believe I would have physically stopped that bulldozer and said, yo, this is bird habitat, man. What are you doing? Like, let's get the biologist in here before this, like, cause they've displaced now these animals. And I, kind of hurried back here to the best of my ability, but it was very difficult for me to pull myself away from all my brown waxwing buddies.
Oh, I totally get it. I'd be the same.
Yeah, I just didn't. And the worst part about that entire thing is I am helpless. I cannot do anything for those birds. I know for sure that half of the population there is still nestling. So like they're not, they're out of the nest, like they're flying around, but everyone is still sleeping back at the nest, right? Like, and so what that means for those birds is absolutely tragic. And the parents are now going to have to relocate, possibly try to do it again this year. Anyway, just a lot to unpack. And so sorry to dump that on the start of your show, but honestly, I just feel like it's very related because when it happened, I had a new perspective on my devastation after talking with Bonnie and Therese for sure. And I actually said out loud what I said. I said, any of the fairies, any of the fae that got displaced here. And I also thought a lot about the opening to my show and what happens to people who cut down fairy thorns. Well, this blackberry briar was nothing but thorny plants for an entire half football field, right? And the last thing I'll say is that the whole audio landscape of that section of road was different. Like the softening of the cars everywhere around that was being sucked up by that plant mass was now gone, and everything just sounded like city. And the light, like there used to be kind of a nice shady patch because it was a 13-foot tall wall of stuff, was gone. And now the sun was just caking onto this bare earth. All the worms were coming up and they looked like they were also like, what the fuck? It was just bizarre. The whole thing looked to be crying to me, like weeping and crying. All the birds were landing at my feet crying. And so I just couldn't not bring that into this particular episode because I know that you are a beautiful soul, Jem. I've talked to you just briefly and I've looked at your comments and I just needed some compassionate, kindred spirit time. So thanks for that.
Oh, absolutely no problem at all. I am absolutely equally as devastated as you are, and for all the wildlife as well. It's just humans are the worst. That's all I can say. Human beings.
We're definitely a strange part of this mix. That's for sure. I like to think sometimes of us as absolutely just like worthy of being wiped off the planet. And then I also think about the converse, which is that humans can be pretty amazing.
Yes. So, yeah.
The truth is that it has never not been biblical times. Everyone listening, mark my words, you're still living the story of the Bible. This is still the epic struggle of good versus evil, ongoing to this day. It's never not been magical times on earth. And so don't get lulled by your Starbucks and your skip the dishes to thinking that we've solved it all.
No.
Actually, that stuff is probably keeping most people from the type of truth that you and I are starting this conversation about, which is reverence for life and moving around living things gently, for fuck's sake. Come on,
Human beings have got a long way to go. They've got a lot to learn. Certainly they have. Yeah.
Jem, thank you so much for letting me be emotional for a second about a blackberry bush.
No problem. I'm with you all the way. Yeah.
So with that abnormal introduction to the show, let's get back to basics here. So tonight we're going to the UK, across the pond, and we're going to hear some remarkable storytelling, some remarkable recounts of experiences, because Jem has had quite a lot of experiences with the Fae. Now, Jem, if you allow me, I'll just sort of give my normal intro, which I think is important for people to hear. We are not here to convince anybody of anything on the show. And as you know, I've seen a fairy myself, and when I personally try to describe my fairy encounter, I sound pretty wild and hard to contextualize and hard to understand at times for somebody that is not immersed in this world and doesn't have the prior context to understand what I'm talking about. So I really do think it is brave of you to step forward. And I'll let the audience know, like, I reached out to Jem because she's been a follower of the show and made some awesome comments. And I just thought, like, wow, this is a great person to potentially talk to. You're kind of the first person I've been able to really bring on the show from that particular channel. So I just really appreciate you commenting and like making me be able to be aware about you that way. And I do further really appreciate you agreeing to come on the show when I asked. And so thanks a lot for that.
I know it was an absolute pleasure. Honestly, I was thrilled to be asked. So yeah, I mean, I was saying to you a few moments ago when I came across your podcast, I was really excited because from my own experiences, I'm looking for answers, and I'm always searching for other people's encounters. And on your Facebook page, there's been a few things that you've posted that I've seen, or somebody's described something and I've totally seen the same thing, or I can relate to it. So yeah, so that's the kind of thing that I've been commenting on. So I'm really, really happy to be talking to you, and I have got so much to tell you. So I hope you've got a cup of tea or something, because we'll be here a while.
I certainly have a cup of tea, and I have a pre-rolled joint at the ready. So,
No, there you go.
And that's a really great point you made, and I'll just kind of double down on that if it's okay with you. I mean, I also started this show very implicitly because I was super confused by what I experienced. And I felt like, I couldn't really get enough answers from internet research. And so the voice of people who have also seen or heard something is, for me, the most powerful evidentiary style that satisfies what my brain wants, which is I want to know someone else also saw something. I want to know that it's similar in nature, at least, to what I saw, and that I'm not crazy, straight up, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I had another person with me. That's helped me immensely. But if you're alone in your encounters, if you're alone in your perception, you can be quite isolated in that. So you're doing a service here today, Jem. Not just, thrilled to be on, that's cool and all, but actually, I mean, you're really helping a number of people who will listen to this, myself included.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm definitely a listener as much as anybody, right? So although I put the show out, it's really the audience who is listening that is the most important part of this show, absent the guests. I think those are the kind of hierarchies. Audience first, guest second, me somewhere in there at the end, so.
Yeah. I think now is a really good time to tell you about the first fairy experience that I had, which happened over 25 years ago, and I didn't realise that it was real, and so for all of these years I thought that it was just my brain that had imagined it. So I'll just briefly tell you about this, and then we'll move on to what's been recently, which is an absolute opera house full of activity. But so yeah, I was 15, and there was myself and I used to call them my cousins, but they were my mum's best friends' sons, and they were one was my age, one was a year older, and we grew up together as kids. I've known them since I was 1, 2, so we were about 15, and so there was 4 of us, me and three guys, so one of their friends, and then the 2 brothers, and we went to the grandma's house of my cousins, who was away somewhere. So you can imagine, like 4, 15, 16-year-olds, we went just to go and do what teenagers do. And at this time it was to drink. So But unbeknownst to me, one of the boys brought with them a small bag of magic mushrooms. Now, I'd never heard of them, really. I mean, I had heard of them, but I'd never dabbled in them, or I was quite a good girl, didn't do drugs or anything like that. The odd cigarette and half a lager and lime, but so this would have been in the mid-90s, and so one of them said, "Oh, let's make a cup of coffee with these mushrooms, and then we can share it between four of us." And I was like, "Yeah, okay then," because I was a teenager, and that's what you just you do. So we had literally, God, a quarter of a cup of coffee each, so a mouthful. And then it was all just very relaxed, and we went and sat. It was a tiny little terraced house. We went and sat in the lounge, like an early 1900s, so it got like a tiled fireplace, hearth, and just small rooms. But there was one of the brothers went upstairs, I think, and then the other two were sat on the sofa to my left, and I was sat on the sofa facing the fireplace, and we were just sat there, just relaxing. I was listening to the two boys talking to each other. It was all very quiet and chilled, and I'm looking at the fireplace, just waiting, just being happy in myself, not thinking, oh, is something going to happen? Is it not? Whatever. And then, but I'm sat there, and then out of the corner of my eye, my right eye, I can see movement below on the floor. So I looked down, fully expecting to see a mouse, because I grew up in rural moorlands, and I grew up in an really old stone farmhouse that was, it's like 600 years old, and there was beams, and in the beams there was holes, and it was really normal to see, and some people might be horrified, but I thought they were really cute. But you'd see like house mice, and they come out of the holes and they climb down the curtains, and they were just going about their business. So I saw this scurrying to my right, so I looked down at the floor, and from underneath the sofa that I'm sat on, so directly in front of me, you've got a fire rug, a traditional, what I'm trying to say, it's like a floral pattern woven woolen rug, which you see in a lot of British households. I don't know if it's a thing in Canada, but anyway, and this rug, it was darkish colours with the odd bit of white, but mainly it was like a dark maroon red, and it got like these floral flowered, patterns with the vines and the leaves, not just the standard rug. Anyway, so looking down, thinking it's a mouse, what comes from under the sofa but a troop of gnomes, and they were going as quickly as they could, and they were making sure that they would keep on the dark parts of the rug and watch them, and thoroughly enjoyed watching them. They run so quickly. It was like a line of lemmings. I don't know if you know the Lemmings, the game. Do you remember that? Yeah. So it was like lemmings, and what they did is they kept on the dark bits, got to the end of the rug, which was in front of the fireplace, and then the leader stopped, pointed to the floor, and then one by one they jumped into the floor and disappeared. So they were, I'd say that height-wise, they all had boots, hats. They were gnomes, beards. They were about, about maybe 2 or 3 inches in height. They were tiny. Didn't make any sound. And that was that. And they jumped one by one into the carpet. So I watched them, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. They were really amusing to watch. They were a bit clumsy, whatever. But so after they'd gone, I mean, it was over in seconds. I looked to my left, and I asked my cousin and friend, "Did you see the little men?" I remember I used those exact words. "Did you see the little men?" And they stopped what they were talking about, looked at me like I'd just insulted them. No. Turned to each other and carried on talking. So I was like, oh, okay, and that was that. So I assumed that was my brain playing tricks on me. For years and years, I thought, no, that they weren't really there. That's because I'd had that magic mushrooms. I've never again had magic mushrooms, but from talking to people, I had the tiniest dose, and it didn't do anything for me. So, but like I said, I thought that I'd imagined it. My brain had conjured that up. It was only when 2-3 years ago, I was listening to, I think it was 2 years ago, I was listening to the Modern Fairy Sightings podcast in my cabin where I'm talking to you now. My cabin's it's full of all my crystals. I make crystal crafts and things like that. But and I used to enjoy putting Joe's podcast on and just listening to it whilst I was doing my thing, And I remember it happening. She was interviewing Dr. Jack Hunter, and that's when they were talking about how he'd seen I think he'd seen some tiny little men climbing on some drawers or something, but yeah. And then he said something about he'd had magic mushrooms, and I thought, and what he was saying was it opens I don't want to say third eye, but you know what I mean. It can open your eyes so that you can see things that you wouldn't normally see. So I literally remember thinking, oh my God, I actually did see them. They really were there, you know, because I just assumed that my brain had made it up, and I didn't realise that actually what had happened is I was sat happy, relaxed, not thinking about anything, and that's normally when you tend to have a fairy encounter. It's when you're, you know, thinking about something completely different and they just appear for no reason. So I think it's something to do with if you're in a relaxed and happy state. So, but anyway, that's when I realised that they were actually there. I did see them. But I thought about it. It's the scurrying and the movement that made me look down at the floor. Otherwise, you know, I saw it out the corner of my eye. Otherwise, yeah, so it makes sense to me. You know, why would I have looked at the floor and then imagined them? So, but all these years, I just thought that I had imagined them, and it was just my brain playing tricks on me. But anyway, I did warn you that I waffle, so there you go. But that's the first ever encounter that I had, where I saw something with my eyes, and there's only been one other time, which was in my garden, but I'll tell you about that later.
Wow. Allow me to ask a few questions, if I could, about your first encounter.
Yeah.
Also, let me just say, I mean, is there any greater place than a friend or a relative's friend's house when the parents are away, when you're like 16 to 17?
No.
You're bringing up some great memories for me. Also, really interesting, as you were starting to get into talking about the gnomes, your audio quality totally changed and was almost hard to hear the entire time.
Oh, wow.
And now that it's switched back over to me, you are audibly nice and clear again. It's so interesting how when people talk about the Fae, the audio does weird stuff.
Yes.
It's total. I mean, the audience listening will be able to hear the change right now. You now sound like you're in beautiful, beautiful stereo, and a moment ago you sounded like you were talking down a paper tube through an old transistor radio. And it's just really interesting that I should hear that live a lot of the time when talking to people, and it'll only be when they're talking about the Fae, not when they're talking about other stuff. So yeah, like I was saying, what a great place to be a teenager in, you know, a friend's place while the parents are away on vacation. Gosh, how many parents have come back from vacations without any idea what crazy stuff went on in their house while they were away?
Yeah. Oh, I think they knew because they probably did it when they were teenagers as well.
You know what? Good point. And your discussion about mushrooms is an interesting one. I can't remember the episode name right now, but Misty in the Remember the Rose episode, she and I talk a little bit about mushrooms towards the end, and I've done mushrooms a number of times. I'm happy to admit that. I'll tell you something about mushrooms just to kind of build on what you're saying. Something that I didn't really bring up in my conversation with Misty, and I regretted not doing it. So since we're talking about mushrooms a little bit here, I'll bring it up again. The way that like a psilocybin mushroom experience works on the brain is different than other types of drugs. So traditionally, if you think about a drug, it has a lock and key mechanism whereby an active ingredient fits into a receptor site in your brain, and then that causes a feeling or a sensation or a perception or whatever. But the main mechanism of function is lock and key. You know, the opioid receptor receives the opioid molecule and they fit together. With mushrooms, though, what's different is that psilocybin doesn't really have a receptor site in the brain, but the body, when it receives a psilocybin dose, recognizes it like a foreign substance and produces a natural response from within yourself to the foreign substance, and that's what produces the psychotropic effect. So the mechanism is really interesting because when you take a normal drug, you're taking a substance. That substance artificially is filling a receptor site in your brain and producing an experience. When you take mushrooms, your body is, I mean, this might sound strange, but your body is like, oh, I've been poisoned. And then it is like, I'm going to react to this poison by producing this very specific set of internally producible compounds. And that's why it enhances your natural perception versus producing a hallucination that is not there and is the byproduct of an artificial molecule fitting a lock and key.
All right.
So when you do mushrooms, even a little bit, the response of your body is what is getting you high. It's responding to the foreign invader, much like an antihistamine response in a way, if you could think about it like that, sort of, to pollen or something like that. Yeah. And so what people are experiencing on mushrooms is very real a lot of the times, I think, is the difference and why the experiences can be profound. But what you just said about it catching your eye is also something that I was going to ask you about. And I'm so happy that you shared that detail because, listen, I've done mushrooms more than you.
Yeah.
Let's say for sure, just for sake of this conversation. And I mean, I've never had a visual hallucination that did not have like a direct correlation to something that was going on. So like, I'll look at plants and definitely that plant looks to be like almost breathing, you know what I mean? And like, but that's, I think what's going on is you're just seeing another side to that plant's existence that's normally veiled from you as we're talking about. And so when you're saying, oh, it caught your eye, your faculties are working, they're working normally, but you are getting a look at what is normally not there. So you definitely saw it. I really do believe that you definitely saw it. And the motion that you're talking about is something I'd like to ask you a little bit more about. So you kind of saying they're like running like the game Lemmings. First of all, how many were there approximately, would you say?
Oh, approximately, I'd say 8 to 10, no more than that.
Okay. And a couple inches tall. And they were coming out from underneath the couch.
Yes.
Okay.
So there was no rug. The rug ended at the bottom of the seat of the couch. So they came from they ran on the wooden floor and then they ran onto the rug. If you know what I mean.
I don't mean to laugh. It's just your audio's done it again, right?
Has it?
Yeah, right at the description of the gnomes, whereas before it was just fine. Okay, so that's cool. Why do you think they were sticking to just the dark parts of the rug?
That's a really good question, and I've thought about that, and I think it's so that in case they were seen, because they were wearing dark clothes. I can't remember exactly the colours that they were wearing, but they were dark. Like the colours, they blended in with the rug, and I remember the rug was like a very dark maroon, which is a typical fireside rug that you would find. Especially in the 90s, and the majority of it is dark maroon, and then it's got the odd bit of white in it. But they were purposely maneuvering and jumping, but so quickly, and so it was such precision on keeping on the darker bits until they got to the end, and then literally they all stopped and then jumped into the same spot that the leader is pointing at the floor, and they jumped, and they just disappeared into the floor, one by one.
Let's talk about the movement for a second. And so on the show, I like to talk about the way that fairies move, for a minute, usually with people that have actually seen them. So I know it can be difficult to describe, what something moved like or what something looked like. I mean, it's probably one of the hardest things. Try to describe a blue sky to a blind person. It's basically like, where do you start? So I have a lot of empathy for the difficulty of what I'm about to ask you, but when you say like it was really precise and et cetera, can you maybe just dig into that a little bit more with more detail? Like how were they moving if you can add some detail, that would be really appreciated.
They were running. So, their arms moving while they were running, like a human, like a bipedal. Yeah. Just like you would expect to see anybody.
Was the speed unusual otherwise?
Yes. Oh, so quick, like a mouse speed. They were so quick. Yeah, and they'd gone within seconds 3, 4, 5 seconds, they'd gone.
Yeah, when I saw my fairy, I mean, it moved so precisely. It was like very fast, but very like on a track almost. Like it just moved like so precisely.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was the odd jump left, odd jump right. If you were playing like a platform computer game and you had to jump over a hole, something, it was a bit like that. So they'd jump over the white bit, stick to the red, but they were in a line, and just really they looked like they'd done it a million times before.
Yeah, yeah, I'm getting a sense of it, and I really do think that you're describing the type of visual phenomena associated with Fae sightings. It's interesting. Do you think that they knew that you could see them?
No, they didn't. Definitely not. They didn't look at me. They would have run past. They would have seen my legs and feet, definitely, but they came from underneath the right side of me, so they would have run past my calf muscle, ankle, right foot. They were. If I'd moved my foot to the right, They were that close to me. Just if you're sat down.
So it would appear like what we're talking about kind of tracks. Like you've taken a small amount of mushrooms. You're in, but also what you're saying about a relaxed and happy state, because Ron, my first guest, certainly is not taking mushrooms. He's just meditating and getting himself there. I was not on mushrooms at the time that I saw my fairy, but I was in a super blissful state, which you could argue is akin to a meditative high or a meditative state.
Yeah.
And like you said, just sort of when you're happy and least expecting it is when it seems to happen. And so it tracks a lot of what you're saying, because if this is a hallucination, well, why would you hallucinate something that, doesn't notice you? Why would you hallucinate something that's, coming from underneath you out towards you? And then it's just a very strange, quote unquote, hallucinatory experience. And, having had hallucinatory experiences for real on drugs like DMT, LSD, etc., those have a distinct quality to them that you're tripping out. It's hard to put it any other way. You just know, like, oh yeah, I did some drugs and this is happening. But when you're seeing something like that and the way that you're describing it, it does not match a drug type of experience. It's what you're talking about is a perception change that let you see something.
This is why for years I just assumed that it was the mushrooms that had played a trick on my brain. Because I that's the only thing that I've ever done. Yeah, I like a glass of wine, but that's it really. I never did it again, so I hadn't gotten a comparison. So I just assumed for 25 years that it was the mushrooms that had made me imagine it. But then, like I said, the scurrying made me look down, and the speed was of a little house mouse that I was so used to seeing them. But what's interesting is that my cousin and his friend, so the sofa I'm sat at is facing the fireplace, and then to the left is the bay window of the room, and there's a sofa underneath there. So they're facing me. So my left side is faced. Do you know what I mean? They could see my left profile, but they were turned to each other. And engrossed in the conversation. But I did ask them, did you see the little men? And they just looked at me like I was bonkers. So yeah, that's another reason why I just assumed that it was my brain that had made it up. But like I said, and then I heard Dr. Jack Hunter talking about the mushrooms and how he saw something, and that's when I was like, oh, okay, I did see them. So yeah.
I've never listened to Dr. Jack Hunter, and I'm definitely not a doctor over here, but I'll confirm for Dr. Hunter and you. Yeah, I think you saw what you're talking about. The final question I would have is just about them jumping into the floor for a second, because that's a pretty cool detail. So the leader, he's like pointing down at this spot on the rug, and do they sort of like jump up from standing and then it's sort of like down into like almost like if someone's jumping into a manhole, if you could imagine it, kind of thing, like
just like that? Yeah.
Huh. And so when they disappeared, what did that look like? Were they just going in?
They just went in, just like they jumped into the floor. But I have seen in my garden lots of gnomes, and that's how they arrive. They come from the ground upwards. That's how they travel. They travel through the earth. I've seen there was I call them Mr. and Mrs. Gnome, and they appeared on my decking, and they came from, and I have it on video, but they came from the earth, and they travelled. So the decking is built up, so they've gone through the ground, and then through the space between the ground and the decking boards, and then through the decking boards, and they landed, stopped, turned around, and then ran off in the opposite direction. And they ran off with such speed as well. They're just gone.
Okay. First of all, I just want to say a few things. The first thing is thank you for this amazing story, the first one about the gnomes. Okay. Thank you for your time so far. I really appreciate it. I'm having so much fun talking with you. Yeah. And I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like way better after what just happened. So thanks for that. I'm talking about the birds and the bushes and everything like that. Yeah. Let's so for the audience and for myself, to help keep this focus and moving along in a way that makes sense, I want to hear about these other gnomes, I think maybe right now, but I know you have some other things to talk about. So before we get there, I'll just give a bit of a sort of lead in for the audience. One of the things that I thought was really interesting was some of the photography you shared with me.
Yeah.
So I was hoping you would tell me a little bit about how that's come about. But I guess the easiest way to sort of move from story 1 to story 2 is really just to kind of go through space and time in a linear way. So if you would be so kind, doing the same thing that you were just gracious enough to do. And thanks for, by the way, getting yourself into your first story without me having to ask. That was awesome.
I did tell you I'm chatterbox. Sorry.
Oh, no. I really mean it was awesome. It was like, usually I feel like I have to be so nice and ask so gently, but you're really willing to tell me. So I felt like that was awesome. But yeah, just if you would be so kind to carry on and sort of what happened, I guess, next in this narrative flow, getting to these gnomes you saw come through the deck and pictures and all that in time. But yeah, just go with what happened next, I think is the best way.
Okay, right. So I was 15 then, and then fast forward a good few years, and where are we now? So where did it begin? Let me just have a think about this. Do I include a couple of bits? Give me 1 second to think about it. So, right, I'll tell you. So I, at the moment, I'm talking to you in my she shed. So at the bottom of my garden, it's not a very long garden, but it's a lovely garden, and I have my own personal space. So I mentioned that, I have a lot of crystals. I make crystal crafts. I sell a few crystals, things like that. It's just it's a passion of mine. It's not my living or anything. It's just a passion that I. Anyway, so in 2023, I was, so let's think about it. So it was about February, March last year, and I was in the morning. I was came out of the back door, walked a little bit across the decking, came down the steps, and then you're onto the gravel to the left. We have directly in front of the cabin. There is a bit of a lawn which is walled with brick, which is the same level as the grass. So it's sunk in. And then to the left of that, are you following? There is gravel, and then there is a beautiful old flint wall which belongs to the neighbour's house. But so in my garden, I've got half of it is a flint wall, and then the other half is just a wooden fence panel. So, but that's majority of my garden is surrounded by a flint wall. So it must be, I know it's about 200 years old, this wall, but it's so pretty. It's covered in ivy. Next to this wall, I have got a tree stump, which was at the time was covered in moss. And it was a perfect place, and I used to use it to photograph my crystals. So for my Instagram, things like that. So one morning I'm coming out of my house. This is February, March last year. Coming out of my house, and as I walk past the tree stump, which I keep really immaculate for my photos, there's a pile of pumpkin seeds on it. and these pumpkin seeds had come from the previous October. I'd put the pumpkins out. I had 2 or 3 pumpkins, and I leave them outside for nature, slugs or whoever wants to eat them. So by February, March time, they'd disintegrated to the point where there were lots of seeds that you could see. That was pretty much all that was left. So these pumpkins were, I'm rubbish with giving you like descriptions of distance, etc. But they were 6 feet away from the tree stump that I used. So I was a bit annoyed, to be honest with you, when I saw the pile of pumpkin seeds on my tree stump. So I thought, okay, that's really odd. I'm sure I didn't do that, but never mind. So I brushed them off and then went into my cabin, went about my day, and that was that. Didn't think anything else of it. The next day, I come out of the house, walk across the decking, down the steps, glance at the tree stump. There's pumpkin seeds on there again, plus the ones that I'd swept off the day before on the floor surrounding it, on the gravel. So I stood there, my hand on my hip, and I was like, okay, right, somebody's playing a trick on me. But I just knew. I mean, there's over the years so many supernatural things have happened to me, so many, and I'm really good. I'm quite a sensitive person, and I just knew that it was something a bit weird. But anyway, so I swept them off again. But I went into the house, and I found my children. I've got 2 children, and I asked them, did you put the pumpkin seeds on my tree stump? Because I was annoyed that it got dirty again. And they said no, and I knew they hadn't. Why would they? So then I went to find my husband, and I got as far as, did you? And I thought, no, of course he hasn't. So that was that. So anyway, I swept them off, went about my day again. I came out the next day, and I couldn't believe it. They were there again, plus the ones from the 2 previous days on the floor. I thought, what is going on here? So that really sparked my interest, and I thought, right, I'm going to do a stakeout tonight. We've got on the cabin, facing the back of the house, and facing very conveniently this tree stump, there's a Ring camera. So my husband, he's got a few Ring cameras. He likes technology, as a lot of people do. So so I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend the night monitoring this tree stump and see what happens. Not really expecting to see anything, but so I did. So I mean, it got dark quite early because it's February, March, so it was dark by about 9 o'clock. But by about 10 o'clock, something like that, this little light appeared on top of the tree stump, and I was like, okay. And I watched it, and it moved from the tree stump to the pumpkins and then back again, and it kept repeating this. And then as I was watching that for hours, I was watching this, and I was like, what on earth can that be? And it just kept going backwards and forwards, and I couldn't see it move in the pumpkin seeds, but I knew that it was going to the area where the pumpkin was, where all the seeds were. Yes, I was watching it, and then this is when it all starts. This is when it got absolutely mind-blowing. As I'm watching this tree stump further back, so perhaps another 6 feet towards the house, directly where the decking is, so you've got the decking steps, so just after the steps you're on the decking, there was this really large flash. Let me give you a size. So it was it looked to be, the flash was about 6 or 7 inches. It was a flash like that.
Are you there? Wow. I mean, for the audience listening, she says the flash, and then she cuts out. Jem is just gone as of that moment, and you could hear the audio starting to deconstruct when she started to talk about. Are you back?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh my goodness. The audio when you say the word flash just completely cut out.
Okay, well, I'll carry on, but hopefully you can hear me.
That's the Fae doing that. I'm sure of it.
Oh, I know it's. Oh, they're definitely in my cabin with me now. They've been in here. I've got them on video. They're absolutely listening to me. But so there was a flash on the decking, and I thought, oh, that was odd. What on earth was that? So I screen recorded it, And then I put it in a app which slowed it down, and what I thought just blew my mind, totally blew my mind. Now, before any of this started, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, 3 years ago, do you believe in fairies? I would have said, no, not really. Not really, no. I mean, I like the idea of them, but no, not really. So imagine my absolute gobsmacked face when I slowed it down. What it was is the only thing I can describe to you, about 6 inches, 6 to 8 inches, a a being that had a large eye, but with a large, like, round whitish eye, but with a black dot in the center. So, you know, very round eyeball. Look at it, I could only see the profile of him. What he looks to me is he's a male pixie. He's got a crown, or he's got a 3-point hat on, and in his right hand he's holding what looks to be like a glass, like a whiskey glass, and then in his left arm he's holding on to a dog. I mean, who knew that the Fae had pets or animals, you know, but that's another conversation. But under his left arm, he's holding a dog, which looks like a chihuahua. You can clearly see the dog's tongue sticking out. It's got a black nose. And it was a pixie. I call him the Pixie King. It looks like he's wearing a crown. And I literally, this must have been, I don't know, 1 in the morning, maybe, something like that. I can't remember exactly the time, but the time's imprinted on the Ring camera footage anyway, which I still have. But I literally sat there, open-mouthed, in my bed, where I'd been, you know, stalking this tree stump. I completely forgot about the light from that point on, because I just kept re-looking at this video, thinking that's a pixie. That's a pixie. I just sat there all night, and then about 5 o'clock, my husband started to stare, and I was like, Dan, look, he's a pixie. And I mean, he's used to me having weird things happen to me anyway. But you know, I'll tell you about that another time maybe. But so he was like, oh, yeah, wow, okay, yeah. So there we go. It was the first being that I saw. I have seen him again since, but only his face. But he was in full form here. Apart from, you don't normally see details, so it's rare to see their feet. You hardly ever see their feet, but you can, most of the time you see, you know, you always see their face, shoulders, the torso, arms. But the bottom of him was a bit like, you know, if you looked at the animation of Genie, and then how he goes thinner at the bottom as he's coming out of the lamp. It's a bit like that, but I think. It's a bit blurred at the bottom, but he wasn't alone. I didn't notice, but I've watched it so many times, but I went, you know, eventually did notice that there was a female fairy who was dressed in medieval clothing, who appeared, is it just before him, like half a second before him, and she is just to the right of him, and she runs diagonally across the garden, so she's diagonal coming towards the camera but going to the left of the camera, so she's diagonally running. She appears and then she speeds off, and she's so quick that even when you slow it down you still can't, there's no definition, because she's so fast. She's the fastest one I've seen. It's incredible, the speed. That was bonkers. But you can't see her features, but she looks like medieval clothing, where they would have the long sleeve dress, long dress to the floor, and then like a head, I can't remember what they would call it, but you know, do you know what I mean, where they've got their face, their head's covered and they can just see the face. So that's the kind of clothing that she's wearing. And there was also I do see a lot of orbs as well. There was also, just before both of them appeared, there was a couple of orbs moving around, but I never looked at them because I was so focused on the white light that was going from the tree stump to the pumpkin seeds and back and forth. And anyway, that, going back to that for a moment, that went on for at least, I don't know, 2-3 weeks. These pumpkin seeds kept moving, and every day I'd go and they'd be there, and sometimes even the seeds would have the skins taken off them, and then the skins would be in a pile, and then the seeds that were left would be in the pile. Do you know what I mean? So they were peeling the skin off the seeds, so they were separating. It was bonkers. I didn't really find out what that was, but now I know 100% what was happening is that the Fae wanted to get my attention. They wanted me to see them. So and where I am now, so this happened last February, March time, all throughout last summer, I have seen so many different beings on the camera. I've seen fairies. I've seen tiny little pretty winged fairies. I've seen and some of them look cartoon like facially, and some of them look human. I've seen I call her the fairy queen because she looks like a drawing of a Victorian painting of a fairy queen. She's so beautiful and regal, and she looks like a human. And she came out of the top of the flint wall. So this flint wall, that as I'm looking at it now as I'm talking to you, so if I'm facing the house, it's on my right and it runs the whole length of the garden, and it's covered in ivy, majority of it is, and this flint wall is where they come in and go out, and they still do that now. So I've spent hours and hours watching this ivy, and I've captured faces coming out. A really good one I've got on my Instagram page. So I have a private Instagram page, which is where I document everything that I've seen and keep it on there. But I keep it private because I've tried to share a few things on social media, Facebook, and all I receive is just hate and aggression. People don't want to know about it, so I just keep it private. But came across this picture the other day. There's so many of them. I've got nearly 500 pictures on there, or videos, and that's taken me to like the end of last year, and I've had to not spend as much time on the cameras because it was taking over my life really with watching them and trying to capture them all. There's that many, but anyway. Back to the space, most of the fairies that I say, or I'm going to call them nature spirits because they're beings, and they come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes and whatever. But this one had tiny little black eyes. Most of them have black eyes. 99% of them have small black eyes. But this one had human face, black eyes, and then antennae. Honestly, but you can see this one peeking out of the ivy. I've seen pretty little fairies, big fairies, a fairy holding a wand, or it's like a staff. She looks quite cartoonish. So if you look to, like her face, it's so strange. I don't know how to explain it to you, but some of them look really pretty and human, and others look like an animation. What else have I seen? Oh, did you see the Victorian one that I sent you? So there's that fairy. She's got like a hat on with flowers.
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about your photos here for a second. And I have some questions about the pumpkin seeds and the flash that I want to get back to, if that's okay with you. And first of all, thank you for that amazing storytelling about the pumpkin seeds and the flash. That's really cool. So for the audience listening, just in advance of talking with Jem, she was sending me some photos of stuff on Facebook Messenger. And the last photo that you had sent in the series was the photo of this fairy king person that you're talking about. And it's really similar to what was going on for me personally, like with what happened with Danielle's episode, where she sent me some emails and then she makes dolls that she channels the Fae into these dolls. And so I got an email from her that was just a picture of a doll. That's all it was. Because she was like, oh, I forgot the attachment. I'm going to send you this picture of the doll. So I opened my email. I opened this picture of a doll. And I get like full body goosebumps. Like, whoa, what the heck? And I'm like, really taking a minute with myself. I'm like, am I doing, too many fairy podcasts here? Like, why am I getting goosebumps looking at a doll? I don't even understand. Later, she explains to me that she's channeling real Fae into those dolls. As we're talking about that doll is when the glasses in my house move. But to tie this together, when I saw that picture from you, I got the same weird goosebump feeling. Yeah. And I also want to say your photos of fairies look remarkably similar to Bonnie and Teresa's photos of fairies. And for the audience, I am so sorry. I have to get on my website updates to put these photos up there. But you're absolutely right. It's like a 3-point crown. He's holding a dog. He's holding a goblet, kind of looks like to me. And it's it's bizarre. And now that I understand how that picture was captured, it's even more fascinating. So can I just go back to it for a second? I want to make sure I got this right. You're day 3 of pumpkin seeds on the stump. And I kind of get it. Like I'm not like, I don't photograph crystals or anything, but if you have a nice mossy spot to photograph objects, I used to run cannabis dispensaries, and we had, a place that we would go take photographs of buds, and it was like a nice outdoor fence, nice. And so if it was all dirty all of a sudden, I'd be pissed off too, because this is where I come and take my photos. Nice lighting, nice outdoor environment. I get it. So I can see why you're frustrated. So now you stake out the Ring camera and you're watching this light go back and forth. About how big is the light was my question.
Oh, about the size of, it's hard to judge really, but it was, I'd say, a centimetre, really. Yeah, it's not very big.
Oh, so just a pinpoint of light.
Yes.
On the Ring. And you're seeing this on the Ring camera as it's happening. Gotcha.
Yes.
Now, was the flash also on the Ring camera? Because okay, cool. Because when you did start to talk about the flash, which is, you talking about when this Fae appeared, the audio did the weirdest stuff. And it's totally fine now again, by the way. But it's just like when Vicky was trying to say how she saw the troll come through as smoke. And she had to say, it's just interesting because like the audio when she was trying to say smoke took 3 times for her to get the word smoke out. And I had to ask her over and over again. And the audio would be just fine until she said it came through the window as smoke. And it did a really similar thing there when you were getting to saying it appeared in the flash. And I just find that really interesting that they almost, so I don't know this for sure. I'm just a guy who saw a fairy. I'm like a middle-aged white dude who's in Canada. I mean, who am I? But I'm just talking out loud here. If the Fae are listening, and if the Fae can interfere with technology, they're very choosy about when they intercede. Like they seem to be okay with general discussion about them, but then when you really start to talk about a real encounter or a detail that is unique to that real encounter that might be like a piece of knowledge about them, is when the audio seems to do weird stuff. And I just find that really interesting. It's almost they're like listening in for what needs to be redacted or what needs to be censored to protect the Fae somehow, is what it would appear. And I mean, it could just be a whole bunch of coincidence and I have a bad internet connection. Who knows, right? But it's strange. So you see the flash, and now you're going back and you're reviewing the flash, and you see this sort of fairy king, and later you see a woman with him.
That's right, yeah.
I think I'm fully up to speed now. Now, so if we can then first of all, I just want to say as well, I agree with that insight that the Fae wanted you to see them. At first, I was like, do they really want you to plant these pumpkin seeds?
Yeah, somebody else said that to me as well, actually. But I don't have anything in my garden that there's no areas where I can plant. And I do have a few plants, but they're all in pots. So, yeah, but somebody else did suggest that.
My guest from Kentucky had leeks planted that she had thrown casually away and then woke up to find them planted.
Yes, that was amazing.
And so the Quantum Kentucky episode, for those that want to catch up with that story later, who are new to this podcast listening, you can go back and hear that one. So now I've got the baseline. So you have your childhood encounter, and that's like, sticks with you, but you don't think much of it. Later, you're now in a totally unrelated. By the way, I like what you said there about if you had asked me 5 years ago, what do you think of fairies? I would have said, meh, I'm the same way. Like, no one is more surprised that I host a fairy podcast than me.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm the kind of person, lots of supernatural things have happened to me over the years. And I 100% believe in spirits, and you've been to loads of ghost hunts and all sorts of things, spiritualist churches and tarot readers, all that kind of thing interests me, but I just never really thought that they really, and that's because I've never seen one.
Wouldn't you say, Jem, that saying you saw a fairy is probably the hardest thing to say you saw. Like, it's probably arguably the most taboo.
Yeah, people just conditioned to instantly ridicule you, aren't they? If you say that you believe in fairies, or they just assume that you're, crazy, or I don't
Bingo.
know. Yeah.
Is that why there's only 3 podcasts on the entire internet populated by billions of people that about fairies? Like, how is it that there's me, Claire, and Joe Hickey Hall doing this work? What? Like, that doesn't really make sense. Like, if you try to I'm going to start a podcast about XYZ, just as a thought experiment for the audience listening, pick a topic, go to the internet, and you're going to find 2,100 podcasts about it, and you're never going to have a chance to make a mark because it's all been done. So what the heck is wrong with the fairy topic that it's so taboo that it's like us 3 doing the work? It seems really interesting to me, and I've caught a lot of crap too saying I saw a fairy. Like, if you say, oh, I saw a ghost, people will listen to you. If you say, I saw a UFO, oh, people will oh, cool, tell me about it. If you say you saw a fairy, I mean, I've literally had people on Reddit send me Reddit cares, which is someone sends you a thing that's like, Reddit is concerned about your mental health, and would you like to talk to a counselor and stuff like that. It's an insulting way for somebody to low-key tell you they think you're crazy on Reddit, right? So
people really, really enjoy being aggressive on the internet. I mean, you mentioned UFOs, so from my experience, fairies, UFOs, they're connected in some way. I don't know how, but I'm convinced they are. Not only do I see things at night time, I've captured lots of things on the cameras in the day as well. I can tell you more about that in a moment. But one thing that is utterly just, again, really bonkers is from out of the ivy, shooting upwards, the only way I can describe it to you, it looked like a upturned umbrella, but it was about the size of it looks like to be about the size of the palm of my hand. So I don't know, again, maybe it's about between 4 to 6 inches, but it's like a grey colour. I have this on video. So this thing, you can clearly see it increases in size as it comes out of the ivy, so out of the flint wall, which I'm convinced is a portal into and out of my garden, or anyway, but it comes out of the ivy. It's small, and it moves so quickly as well, but if you slow it down you can see it. So it increases in size almost immediately, and then it's in the sky, and it's about level. It gets about level with my daughter's bedroom. So typical British first floor house, and it changes from a upturned umbrella, and then it changes into like a jellyfish shape. It's really, really bizarre, and then it goes off into the atmosphere and it disappears. And I've slowed this down, and I've zoomed in, and I cannot for the life of me think what it could be. What kind of insect looks like a 4 to 6 inch upturned umbrella, then changes into a jellyfish? Almost like a conal shaped jellyfish. I don't know if you know what I mean, but again, I'll show you the video. But I mean, I don't think you've joined my Instagram page. It's private. But if you log on, if you friend request me, I have to keep it private. Everything is on there, everything. So this jellyfish thing, and off it goes into the atmosphere. So anyway, I shared this as an anonymous poster, and I've shared it on UFO pages, thinking somebody's going to be interested in seeing this. Maybe somebody can tell me something about it, and all I get is just abuse and people saying that I've made it up, or it's a bird, so that's a good one, or it's a kite. But it comes out of the ivy, and you can see it. But I put the slow motion video on there for people to compare the original speed and the slow mo. But yeah, anyway, just so I've also had lights as well that have like a tic tac shaped light that's hovered over the lawn and left a spotlight on the lawn and then shot off into the atmosphere. So those are the two UFO type things that I've had. But the majority that I have are the fairies, the gnomes, the pixies, and then I call them nature spirits because they're clearly beings. They've got two eyes, a nose, and a mouth, but they don't look like human. They don't look like a fairy. They don't look like a gnome. They're not wearing a hat. You know, there's millions of different beings, millions. Like there's so many different looking people. There's so many different looking elementals. Sorry.
No problem. I was going to say, so many of the things that you are talking about actually resonate with a lot of the guest encounters and my own insights. I think that fairies are like nuanced, just like people. And I actually do think there's millions of them, just like there's billions of people.
Yeah, there is.
And so sometimes like, yes. I think I get a wide variety of feedback as the host of this show through a bunch of different channels. Sometimes I think people are kind of like, I just want you to focus on people who like saw one thing one time and are confused about it. Stop bringing these people on who say they see stuff all the time. And I'm like, okay, let's just break this down, right? If the Fae is real, like which I'm gonna posit here that they are, yes, you might catch a glimpse of them like you did when you were young, coming out from under the couch, right? But if they're real and your perception is opened, what is stopping you from being in constant contact? Like Alara and the elf, like Bonnie and Therese and their cross-country fairy forum, like Ron, my first guest, and the fairies that live in his house. He's got a fairy named Cassandra who he talks with on a regular basis. And Cassandra is a person in as much as we are, to the extent that she's got her own thoughts and feelings.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Fae aren't like I think part of the reason people have such a hard time with accepting that you're seeing the Fae is it means, in effect, accepting an entire population of interdimensional beings in an ecosystem all around you all of the time, for which you, generally speaking, have no awareness. And that probably terrifies people.
Yes, it does. And that's why I get abuse on social media, because they're frightened. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. And that's why I'm basically the only guy hosting a show trying to talk about, did you see one of these things? Because it's demasculating to think something's around you, can just come into your house.
Yeah.
Right? And so guys are a lot more comfortable with UFO and Sasquatch because it feels like something they could shoot out of the sky or go kill in the woods. Right? That's why those topics are so much more popular, because you can get your head around them, put it in a box, kill it, and tag it. But with Fae, no chance. They're basically invisible to the naked eye. And it would appear that they can move through walls, and that space, time, and that space and time have totally different meanings to them than they do to us.
Yeah, but it's only the gnomes that travel from the earth upwards. That's how they travel. What I was going to say to you quickly was, you talking about your previous guests communicating with the Fae, but in terms of communication with me, I haven't communicated. I haven't tried. I haven't meditated and tried to talk to them or anything like that. I've just been quite happy just to observe and study them. That's basically what I do. But they have communicated with me in the sense that they have shown me symbols on several videos. When you still shot it, and that's how I get my images. They're videos and it's a still frame. There's one that I've just shared today actually, and it's a pixie, and right next to him, and this is a really common thing that I see, is he's got this symbol next to him, which is it's 5, so like a 5 on a dice. But I've spoken to a chap called Jeremy Garner, who was also a guest on the Fairy Whispering podcast. If anybody wants to go back and listen, Jeremy Garner is he's an author. He also draws the maps of the fairy world. So he's travelled to Fairyland, and what he's told me that this symbol represents is just sorry, I was going to quote him because my memory is terrible. Where was it? It's basically represents the 4 fairy Oh, sorry, I'm reading. I can't multitask. I'm middle-aged now. It's the four lands in. Sorry, Jeremy, I'm not doing you justice, but it's the four lands in the fairy world. And then the fifth one in the centre is a hidden realm. So, but the realms are Phalius, Boreas, Phineas, and Morius. But that's what he says that this symbol represents. And I've seen this symbol so many times. The other symbol that I've seen is an X, and I've also seen a number 7. So again, these are all photos that are on the Instagram. So if want to have a look at that, they're on there. But it is interesting. But I mean, if I had more time, I would love to research it. I'll get around to it one day. But yeah. So what else was I going to say to you? Just briefly, how I see these fairies or these beings is I sit and open the ring camera. So there's one attached to the house facing the cabin, there's one attached to the cabin facing the house, and I just spend, not so much now, but in the past few months I was spending hours just sitting there watching the cameras, and then it was just taking over my life. But they very rarely trigger the motion sensor, but there's one that did, and I again, this is another mind-blowing one, and you haven't seen this yet, I don't think, but I have this on video, and this is the most incredible video, and I haven't put this on the internet. I mean, I've got a YouTube channel, and I've put 3 or 4 videos on there on the YouTube channel, but I haven't put this on there because I just don't think that people are either say that it's a fake, or they would just wouldn't know how to compute, basically, I think. But the motion sensor started recording this tiny little being, and he jumped onto do you remember I told you about the brick that frames the lawn? So it's the same level as the lawn. So anyway, but he jumps from the gravel path onto the brick, and that's what triggers the motion sensor. Or he must have moved just before, because that's when it starts recording. And he's looking at the camera. And the cameras, they have a blue light. I don't know if you're aware about the Ring cameras, but anyway, there's a blue light, and you can clearly see that he must be in size wise, he's 2 or 3 inches. He's also about 2 inches wide as well. So he's really short and really cute, and his face is changing, literally changing as he's staring at the camera, and he looks at the camera for about 20 seconds. At first you think he's wearing a hat, but it's actually some kind of lizard-like being that's on top of his head, and that's blinking as well. So this being's eyes, his face is moving. It's so weird. It's like I can't begin to explain it. I just don't have the words. But his eyes are changing shape, his face is changing shape, and he's looking at the camera. This is the only one that was picked up on the motion sensor. So the other ones, I've recorded them because I'm watching it all the time. And then he must realise that he's been recorded. I don't know what happens, but all of a sudden you can kind of see him think, oh, and then he jumps onto the grass, but there isn't anything to jump onto. But anyway, he jumps and runs off. You haven't seen that yet. I haven't sent it to you, but I don't really know how. Yeah, it's speechless is exactly what I was like when I saw it. So that happened not that long after the Pixie King, but that is probably the most incredible capture that I have. Another one of my favourites is I've got a shapeshifter. So I have a female fairy. Again, she is on the gravel just in front of the camera. She looks at the camera. A lot of them look into the camera, which is why I know that they know that I'm watching them, and they want me to watch them. And I think I know the reason why. I'll tell you in a moment. But this female fairy, she jumps next to my son's football. She kind of leans against it, and you can see, I mean, they're always transparent. You can see them, but they're transparent as well. And most of the time, they're 2D. But she leans on this football, and then she jumps onto the football, but she's now a frog. And then I think she might blink. She's there for a second, and then she jumps off. So, I'll tell you what it is. I think she turns up. She's a frog, Then she changes into a female fairy. That's it. She's a frog, then a fairy, then jumps onto the football, then she's a frog again, then she jumps, like flies up into the ivy. Frogs don't jump up like that. I mean, she flies up. But again, this frog looks almost like it's animated. Am I blowing your mind, Jim?
You know what? I mean, many people that have really seen fairies describe them as being two-dimensional, and myself included. What I saw looked like it was punched out of reality, like as a flat punch, a flat hole punch is how I've described it. It is mind-blowing, and the shape-shifting is also something that Ron talks about, and I've heard other people talk about as well. It seems to be instantaneous, like seamless from one form to the next, basically.
Yeah. Oh, it is. Yeah, I have it on video. I have it. You can watch it.
Yeah, another person sent me a video unrelated to what you're talking about that is a Ring camera as well. And I've put this video out on the internet on behalf of this person. They're like, I think this is a real fairy. What do you think, James? And I was like, yeah. I looked at the video a lot. I slowed it down in a bunch of software and I couldn't figure it out. Eventually what I did was I looked at, because what happens is something flies into frame that is two-dimensional. It's clearly paper thin on the Ring camera, but the Ring camera does pick it up. It then seems to notice the Ring camera, just like you're talking about. And upon noticing the Ring camera, shapeshifts in what is basically 1 1/2 frames of recording, so less than 1/10 of a second. It shapeshifts into what looks like almost like what you're talking about, like a small missile shape. Moments before, it is winged. It is a winged two-dimensional fairy. The camera sees it. It turns itself into this missile shape, and it goes down, like it drops 8 feet from the Ring camera height down to the deck. It goes across the deck, across the pavement, up the driveway, and out of the shot. But it moves, and we calculated it because I asked the guy, where's this Ring camera and where is this car? And he calculated it was 270 feet. Like he went out with the measuring tape and he actually measured from where the Ring camera was to where the thing was.
Yeah.
And whatever got captured on this Ring camera goes 270 feet from a dead stop in 1.112 seconds. Faster than a Dodge Charger from 0 to 60. Right?
Yeah, you see, I think if you measured that, if someone could, I mean, it's beyond me, but if somebody measured the umbrella jellyfish thing, then it probably would find that it was something similar. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and when I saw my fairy, I mean, I saw it come at me that fast.
That's so fast.
Enter the wheelhouse of my boat and stop on a literal dime in front of me. And then proceed from that complete stop to take off with the exact same velocity in the other direction. Yep. It's the fastest and smoothest thing I've ever seen in my life, and my eye could almost barely track it. It was crazy. Had it not stopped in between me and blown my mind for like a full second, I would have, just thought, did a shooting star? But a shooting star is still too slow. They're still too slow.
Yeah, oh yeah.
If you
definitely.
think about a shooting star, they're too slow still.
Yeah. So this jellyfish thing looked like it had been projected out of the ivy, like that. So yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
This flint wall, you have a 200-year-old flint wall. I know it might be hard to describe, but I can kind of imagine it. It's like shale, like this like large flat, and this stacked up. I can see what you're saying when that would be beautiful, all covered in moss and ivy.
Yeah, it's flint is also part of the quartz crystal family as well, and crystals are.
Oh, so you have a quartz wall, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
It's in the quartz family. I mean, I'm not a gemologist or anything, but I do know that. But and also I know that fairies are very attracted to crystals, which I think is another reason why they like my garden and my cabin. But I can't help thinking that maybe they have something to do with why I've got loads of crystals, because I mean, I've always loved them, but it's only like in the last 4 or 5 years that I started really getting into them. And if I look back, I've lived in this house for 16 years. If I look back over the years, loads of weird things have happened, and I've always put it down to ghosts. But just very briefly, I've got to tell you, I've got so much to tell you, honestly. But I feel it's a good point now to tell you about the things that have happened in the house. So, is that okay?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And then once you're done with this next story about the things that have happened in the house, just to out of respect for the audience's time more than anything, and your time as well, I'll ask a couple of questions to help us move towards the conclusion of this particular conversation. But I'll tell you what, I would love to bring you back for a second conversation, I think, in the future. To cover some more of this topic matter. But yeah, tell me now, please, about some of the stuff that's been going on in the house. I think we've covered a lot of the fairy stuff up till now, to the point where my questions have been satisfied. I was going to ask a few more questions about those gnomes you saw come up out of your deck, but we can get there. We can get there in a second. For now, it's totally welcome, and something I would really appreciate if you tell me more about this house, because I'm trying to put together what's going on. Like, I kind of agree with you. The rock wall is most likely a portal.
Yeah, it is definitely. Yeah.
Also, your question about like, do I have crystals because of the Fae or the other way around? Man, I've been down that rabbit hole with myself in the boat and a few things. Yeah, I totally have. So I get that, and so it's relevant. Yeah, let's talk about the house, because where you're residing might have something to do with it as well.
Okay, yeah, well, okay, a couple of points there then. So Claire Silverwand actually came to visit me, and with her dowsing rods, she found that the house, the garden, specifically where the decking is and the steps are, there is a cross of energy lines there, which is really interesting. And then she looked at an old map and found that there is a very old bridle path that goes through my garden to the next village along. The path's not there now. It's it's gone, long gone. But on an old map, you can see that it was there. And her thoughts were perhaps the Fae are still using that path, which is a really, really good point. But I mean, they come out of every single part and direction of my garden and my house as well. They come everywhere. But the house, so it's just a very modest, like 3-bedroom 1930s semi-detached house, but some spooky things have happened in it over the years. But to give you a couple of ideas, so my son is now 13, but when he was 3, he's quite sensitive to the spirit world, I'd say. So a couple of things happened, and one was that he used to point at the ceiling and say that he could see, I can't remember how he described it, but he could see things moving, and he'd go, "Look at that, mummy, look at that." And this happened quite a few times. And then he was lying in my bed with me one morning, and the bedroom is nice and white ceilings, lots of lights, and it was lovely, natural lighting. And I'm lying there next to him, and he's looking at the ceiling, following. You can clearly see that he's following things with his eyes. And he said, look at them, mummy. And I said, "Oh, I wish I could, darling. I can't see them." And then as soon as I'd said that, I could see what he was looking at. And the ceiling was full of tiny little coloured orbs, like pastel coloured orbs, of various sizes, from small coins to basically coin size, but the larger 10p, 5p in the UK. But anyway, all these hundreds of them moving around the ceiling. And I was amazed. I kept rubbing my eyes and then looking again, and they were still there. But anyway, that was that. Another thing that's happened has been a few poltergeist things in the house. There's been, I had a drink can which was pushed and moved on the table, and I was sat in the lounge one day. I saw it move, so I checked. Guess what? We've got a Ring camera in the lounge as well. So my husband likes technology. So I went back and looked on the camera, and sure enough, the can moves. You can see it. The same things happened to my son when he was about 7 or 8. He had a magazine. There was a free toy on the front of the magazine, and it's covered by a plastic moulded casing, which had ripped off the magazine. That was laying on its own on the table, and I wasn't watching him. He was on the table by himself, and then he looked at the table as he was sat on it, and then got up and came over to me and said, "Mum, check the Ring camera." So we did, and anyway, what had happened was the plastic thing, you could see it lift up move forward, then drop down again. And then the most recent thing is last year. This one is really amazing, and I've got this on video as well. I've put this on, I think this is on my YouTube channel actually. So I'm talking to my mum, she's in the kitchen with me. I'm going backwards and forwards from the cooker to the sink and putting things away. And my mum was at the table. And as I leave the cooker and go back towards the sink, there's this big crash. So and then I look, and there's a soup ladle on the floor. So initially it had come off next to there's a tiny little bit of worktop to the left of the cooker where I keep the utensil pot, and I thought, oh, it's just fallen out when I've just put the stuff away. But I thought I'll watch the Ring camera anyway, because it made such a loud crash and it went quite far into the kitchen. So I watched it back, and you can clearly see that it wasn't in the pot, it was laid next to the pot. You can see it lift up, twist, and then it gets launched off. You can see there's nothing around it. So yeah, there's been a few poltergeist things, but the most amazing story, my husband's wedding ring went missing for about 3 years, and this started somewhere about 2018, I think. So you know, one day he comes to me and says, "Jem, I've lost my wedding ring. I know it's in the house somewhere," because you know he puts it down in 2 or 3 places, like normally on his chest of drawers in the bedroom or something. But we spent years looking for this ring. I'm not joking. We looked everywhere. It got to the point where we cut the bottom of the sofa off to see if it had gone down there, and we couldn't find it. And I remember time went by, and then one day, like months and months after we'd last looked for it, I said to him, "Oh, have you found your ring yet?" And he went, "No." And I felt really sad about it. And I just said to myself in my mind, "Oh, please help me find this ring." Not in a million years thinking that I would ever find it. You know, it had been gone for 3 years easily. And anyway, this is during lockdown. So what happened is we taught the kids how to ride the bikes on lockdown. So there's a shed with the bikes, which is next to my cabin. So I remember we all went to the shed. We all got actually, so it was just the kids that had bikes. We were just anyway. So I went to the shed, got the kids' bikes. They wheeled them across the lawn, up the decking steps, along the decking which runs down the side of the house, through the gate, onto the drive, and off we went. Shut the gate. I was the one that wheeled the bikes. I was the one that shut the gate, etc. And off we went. So we came back about, I don't know, an hour later, and I was the first one to open the gate you step onto the decking boards. There in the middle of the third decking board was my husband's wedding ring. And I stopped, I looked at it, I picked it up, and it looked as shiny as the day that he, had it. And I picked it up, looked at it, did a little laugh to myself, because like I said, lots of these things happened to me. Turned around and held it up, went to my husband, "Oh, found your wedding ring," and smiled at him. And his face, you can imagine, he was like, "What?" We just literally wheeled the bikes over that exact spot an hour earlier, and if it had been there for 3 years, we would have seen it. It would look weathered. The gaps in between the decking boards are wider than the ring, so it would have easily gone down.
Impossible
Yeah.
that it was there for 3 years. Impossible.
Yeah, so I just gave
Impossible.
it to him and I said, "Say thank you." So he went, "Thank you," and that's that. So I've had other bits of jewellery that I've lost that have been returned to me. One in a house that I used to live in another part of the country, and one necklace that I lost here that was returned to me. But both times I've asked for help, and it's been returned. But I don't know. Is that people say that the fairies are attracted to jewellery or silver or precious metals, or I don't know. But all I can tell you is that ring was lost in that house for years, and one day it just turns up. And I think it was like the day or the day after I'd said in my mind, I didn't even ask out loud, "Please help me find this ring," and there it was. It was returned. But that, yeah. So that I'm going back to, was that the Fae? Have they always been there? What about the lights on the ceiling, the pastel pinks and yellows, these gentle, beautiful, very beautiful orbs that are on the ceiling that my son had been seeing?
it reminds me a lot of my first guest Ron talking about the cartoon shows that the fairies put on the wall for him.
Oh, yeah. There's been a portal in the ivy. Again, I've got some video. Very quickly. So about the size of a grapefruit, there's this portal in the ivy, and there's all these faces looking out at me, and you can see the faces change from like a female looking. They all look a little bit sinister actually. Most of the fairies that I've seen, they've got a soft, happy, open faces. But in this portal that was in the ivy, there's these the faces. There's about 4 or 5 different beings that are looking out of this portal into my garden. But again, that's I've got that on video. You're very welcome to go and have a look on the Instagram and have a look at it.
I certainly will ask that some of these videos and images get shared. And again, for the audience, I'll do my best to start putting this up on the website a little bit more regularly. I just struggle with my computer usage because of my mobility issues, which is the reason for the delay. So, Jem, as we move to sort of wind this conversation down here, just again, out of respect for your time today and the audience's time more than anything, a couple of questions that I have, and just before I get there, I will say, there's no right answer or wrong answer to this question. We've spent a great deal of time talking about the things which you've seen and how you've come across seeing them. By the way, side note, I mean, if I figured out that my Ring camera was capturing fairies, I would just smoke joints and watch Ring camera all day too. So I get what you mean when you say it was taking over your life, right? Yeah. So it's good to balance fairy stuff with real life stuff, like flossing and paying your taxes. Just a gentle reminder to everybody listening. But like I was saying, there's no right answer or wrong answer here. My question, I ask this to pretty much everybody that comes on the show. And so I'm just curious, what your opinions and feelings are. My question is really, what do you think fairies are?
They're spirits. They are sentient beings. They are shapeshifters. They are realm travelers. They are something that we don't understand. Perhaps we did know and we've forgotten. I think that they've been walking beside us for a very, very long time. I don't know.
I don't know either. And that's part of the reason I love to ask that question is there's really no right answer. But I think you're right about just about everything you said, even though I don't think there's a right answer. I think they're real. They're with us. And
yep.
For sure. I mean, from my limited perspective here on top of Mount Fascinating Fae, the man on the hill, I can say that it would appear that they're showing up more recently than they have in modern times. But that could be just confirmation bias. But if it isn't, maybe they're coming back. And maybe that's why this show has started, why you're seeing them, more recently, as well as many of my other guests. Yeah. That would make me actually surprised and happy if, say, like 5 years into doing this show, it does kind of come to bear that everyone is seeing fairies, not just the fringe listenership of this show to date. Because you know what I mean? Like if I got pulled into this and you got pulled into this, who's next? It's going to be the mailman. It's going to be the police officer. It's going to be the lawyer and the judge. It's going to be everybody, I think, in time.
I think if they want to be seen, if they want you to see them, you will see them.
Well, that actually brings me to my next question, which is something you alluded to, but we haven't had a chance to ask. And so I will ask you now, and I do this out of respect, of course. There's no gotcha moments ever on a Fascinating Fae episode. Why do you think they want you to see them? Because I know you said that you had some insights into that. So I'm curious what those are, if that's okay to ask you, please.
So I think that this became apparent to me quite recently. I mean, I've been really guarded with who I shared the footage with, because out of respect to them, and I didn't want them to think that I was exploiting them or anything like that, and also because some of the reactions that I had, and I think they deserved more respect than people being so vile about them and you know, aggressive, except, you know, anyway. But they, I really do think that they've got my attention on purpose, because they want me to help them to be more well known by other humans, and I don't know what for, but they do, because last year and this year I had a reading, and I'd been thinking, before I had the reading last year, I'd been thinking to myself, do I share it a bit more, or do they want me to do it? Do they not want me to do it? I didn't really know, so I'd been really cautious about it. And that in this reading, I'd been thinking about writing a book about it, or more so documenting, because I think it's really important that I think I have a duty to document all this, and that it doesn't just die with me. So I've been thinking about kind of putting it into print, writing about my experiences, writing about what I saw, what they did, how they moved, etc. But so I'd been thinking about it gingerly, and then in this reading I had last year, it said fairy book, and I thought, wow, that's really strange. And it said you're going to be writing on your laptop, something to do with fairies or nature spirits, and that really blew me away. So anyway, so I've carried on documenting everything that I see, and then, but that was last year, and then I recently had another reading last month, and it said the same thing, but this time it added what I'd been thinking, which was some of the photos that I have. I mean, they are all screenshots from the Ring camera footage, you know, but some of them would help if they had like an artist to draw. I mean, I can't draw for toffee. I am terrible. I can just about do a stick man. But I thought what would be great is in this book is if I had a animated picture next to what's in the picture, just so that perhaps, you know, so people can see what I'm seeing, or make it a bit more clear. Some of them not very clear, some of them are spectacular, you know. So in this reading I had recently last month, it said something about drawing fairy pictures for the book. It kept saying book. So that's, again, that blew me away. So that's come up in 2 readings from, you know, 6 months apart as well. So I really do think that they want me to share what I know. I mean, so I've spoken to, I think you're my 4th podcast where I've been talking about them, and yeah, that's what I think it is.
I think you're right, and actually, you said something earlier where you said I'm not a gemologist, but no. You are gem, so I thought that was worth pointing out. And you know, you're not like a fairy expert, but neither am I. But I will tell you what my insights tell me after speaking with you and listening to you for this you know, beautiful conversation we've had here today. I think fairies know your heart. Like, if they can know your mind and help you bring a wedding ring back, it would stand to reason that they know your heart. And
yes,
I said earlier when we were kind of like pre-talking, I can't remember because I might have even said it during this recorded part of the show, but like, in my personal opinion, fairy podcasts like mine, like Joe Hickey Hall's and like Claire's, should have like 20 times the audience. I mean, Sasquatch Chronicles, hosted by Wes Germer, he's getting close to 100 million downloads of his show. His audience is massive. When he puts out an episode, 1 million people listen to it every Sunday or more. Wow. And he basically is talking to people that have seen Sasquatch in the woods. In the same train, you've got like The Confessionals by Tony Merkel. I mean, he's probably hit 40 million downloads, and he talks to people that have seen just anything unusual, ranging from like, I went through a time portal to like, I saw a ghost. You know, he just talks to anyone who's seen anything unusual. So if the audience is in the millions for subject matter like Sasquatch and paranormal in general, what you're talking about, I think, like, I don't know that I necessarily have like clairvoyance, but somewhere along the journey here of doing this show, it's occurred to me more than once that not only is this show taking off because like there's a lack of content in this subject matter, but because I actually think like we're touching on. Like more and more people maybe are seeing fairies actually again. And if that's true, then the Fae are orchestrating that. And if that's true, then they need allies, just like it's like politics, like, you know, hearts and minds, right? So they're looking for allies to spread the message. And this show, Fascinating Fae, is a direct byproduct of my seeing a fairy. And just like you, I'm like, how do I do what I saw justice? I do want to talk about what I saw, you know, because it was mind blowing and it's wonderful and totally uplifting to consider that truth. And absent any other justifiable explanation that's been offered to me, this dialogue that's emerging around the Fae being like an interdimensional kin, it seems to make the most sense, as crazy as that sentence actually sounds. And so it's not coming from the mainstream dialogue. The mainstream is like a weird word, but you know what I'm trying to get at? It's like, you know, we're not hearing fairies are real on the evening news. So maybe it does fall to people like you, people like myself, who are open and sensitive enough to begin with for the contact to be made. And then who furthermore are brave enough, because I said earlier, I do think it's brave to talk about this stuff. You've mentioned a number of times that you catch hate. I've caught hate. I have some guests who, you know, identify as gay, and then they're talking about seeing fairies. They catch triple hate, double hate. You know, it's like, there's also like a dismissing of women that comes along with this subject matter. Oh, it's a chick thing, fairies, blah, blah, blah. So I'm very actually defensive of the audience and my guests. You know, I'll stand up as the straight white guy in the room saying, everybody shut up and listen. These people are telling the truth.
Thank you, James.
If that's what if that's what it takes, you know what I mean? In this fucked up, you know, masculine, you know, topsy-turvy situation we find ourselves in, that literally, like, let's go right back to where we started, right? If men had their shit straight, that bush full of birds and bees would still be there right now.
Yeah.
Right? But they don't. They just get behind the bulldozer, and figuratively and literally, it's the antithesis of what we're talking about here, which is like, there's actually magical things coming out of that thorn bush, dude. You have magical things coming out of your wall. I know that there was a ton of fairy activity in that bush. And like, now that I know that it got mowed down is why that bee let me see him having a nap. And we had such an intimate moment yesterday. It was my goodbye to that fairy bush, you know, and it just goes to show you that you never do know what you've got till it's gone.
Yeah.
And that if you think something is magical and you feel it, like, listen to what I'm saying, everybody. If you can feel the magic in it, like what I'm listening to you talk about, Jem, you've become captivated. It's changed your life. This is totally mind blowing and fascinating to you. Who do you sound like? You sound like me. and hopefully you sound like many other people listening, and many other people that are going to join us, link arms. You know, the Bonnie and Teresa's, the Alexes, the Aleras, the Susans, the Rons. I mean, all the people that have come forward saying basically the same thing. They're here. They kind of want us to know about it. We've forgotten the truth and we're getting a look at it again. I think that you're right. I think that you've been chosen for that work. If no one else is going to tell you, I'm proud of you for leaning into it, for spending the hours on the camera, and then for subsequently talking about it on 4 podcasts and contemplating writing a book, which I really encourage you to do. My clairvoyance tells me Claire's podcast is going to blow up. I've told this to her a few times, actually. I just get a weird vision about it. Subsequently, I think that books about the fairies like you're going to put out will go right along with it, right? And so the subject matter does need to be created in order for the tome of knowledge to exist. And can we agree it's not exactly the right material out there? Like, I don't know about you, when you started researching on this, did you find what you were looking for readily?
No.
Or did you? Yeah, neither did I.
No, and I'm still looking for somebody like me that's got lots of videos or pictures or anything like that.
I should definitely put you in contact with Bonnie and Therese. I'm gonna do that because you two have the type of photographs that are on par. Like it's so for the audience listening, when I do put these images up, this will make sense. Okay, so when Bonnie and Therese first sent me pictures of their fairies, I was kind of like, well, these are sort of blurry and I can't really see what's going on here exactly. Mm-hmm. Because I'm always hosting this show critically. I'm always like, actually, let's just start from a position of whoever I'm talking to is just pulling my leg, and I just kind of go there objectively, putting my my critical bias first, so that I do a good job of putting out the show in a way that like has legs. You know what I mean? I can't just bring anybody on, right? So when I first saw Bonnie and Teresa's photos, I was like, I don't know about these photos. But then she's like, yeah, some of them aren't the best, but some of them are a little bit better. And she sent me this one photo of a fairy woman standing in the crook of a tree. And it looks so similar in terms of composition to the Fairy King photo that you've sent me. And I'm looking at this picture in the tree and I'm looking at this object and I'm like, okay, if this isn't quote unquote a fairy, what in the F is this thing? It's not a squirrel. It's not a bird. It's not a bug. It's a different color than any of the foliage around it. It's a different shape. It's in a weird position on this tree. Like it's not in a position you'd expect the next leaf or next branch to be in. It clearly looks like it's wearing a dress and a top. I can see hair. I can see face. And the longer I look at it, the more it really does pop out at what you're looking at. And it's really interesting to me that the Fae can appear on camera, but not to the naked eye. Yeah. Sometimes.
Well, yes. I was going to quickly tell you, I know you've seen this video, but very, very quickly, I'm sorry to keep you, but I was looking,
please, yeah.
The only one that I've ever captured that on camera in my garden that I saw with my own eyes is this orb, which there's a tree in the corner of the garden, the which is close to the house, a laburnum tree, beautiful tree, I love it, and what I was doing, it was sunset, and I was recording the sun's rays as they were coming through the branches and the leaves of the trees, because I know that fairies, the nature spirits, I've seen them do this, they use the sun's rays to, I don't know if they're appearing in it or if they are superimposing on it, I don't know, but I've seen them do it in the ivy. So I was trying to see if I could do that with the laburnum tree. So I'm recording through my iPhone, and I'm looking and I'm wafting the iPhone around trying to get the sun's rays on it, and my peripheral vision, that's the word, there's a orb. I didn't know it was an orb. I thought it was, the dandelion seeds that go.
Yes.
Yeah, so I thought it was one of those. So I saw it go from right to left. It went under my eye line, so it was about level with my mouth, chin, somewhere like that. And I didn't pay any attention to it whatsoever. I assumed it was a dandelion seed. It went right to left, and then off it went, and it glided like although it went in a straight line. It was constant speed, and it glided. And thinking about it now, dandelion seeds don't move like that, and there was no breeze. But I wasn't thinking about anything apart from the sun's rays. So it went from right to left, and I didn't turn to follow it, and I really wish I had, but I did capture this on camera. It changes from an orb, and you can see it's an orb on camera. It's about the size of a UK 10-pence piece, and you can see it. It goes from orb to bright orange humanoid shape. It pops, and I've slowed it down to see if there's a transition from, a bit of an arm coming out, a bit of a leg coming out. But no, it's orb, then it's the humanoid shape. But if I turned my head to look at it, I would have seen it. But I didn't, because I ignored it. I thought that it was that it was a dandelion seed. But that's the only one that I've got on my iPhone that I've recorded, that I've seen. I have recorded an orb that's got a face on my iPhone that came towards me. I couldn't see it with my own eyes. Oh, believe me, I've spent hours in the garden looking at the Ring camera footage via my phone, so I can see these fairies and things flying around me, but you can't see them with your eyes.
Interesting. So you've got the phone out, you're standing
Yep.
in the
Yep.
it's like you've got almost like night vision goggles on or something,
Yep.
but not, instead of night vision, it's fairy vision.
Uh-huh. I've spent hours trying to see if I can see them with my eyes. A lot of them as well they disguise themselves as insects. There's so many different varieties, but very quickly there's a lot of them that travel in groups. That you'd think it was a moth or something, but if you pause it, you can see that they are beings. I think I sent you a picture of one, and you can clearly see. It looks like a kind of like a fawn type. What's that creature that's half fawn, half man, and it's got like fawn's legs? I can't remember now. Pan. It's like a pan. It looks like pan, and it's got pixie ears. But it kind of looks human, but you can tell that it's not human. But I mean, it's tiny, and then there's two beings either side of him. That you can see that they've got faces, but features not really very distinguishable. But I've got so many like that. I've got a winged. You thought it was a moth, and then you pause it, and you can clearly see a female face with long dark hair. Honestly, so they travel in groups. Most of them. It's more common to see them traveling in groups rather than a single fairy. Disguise themselves as insects, and then they also what I've discovered as well is they have vessels. So I've spoken to a couple of people that have seen. I spoke to Joe Hickey Hall and Kate Ray about there's also Neil Rushton. What they're doing is they're documenting something about the Wollerton Gnomes, which is in Nottinghamshire in England. I don't know if you've heard of the Wollerton Gnomes, but back in the 1970s, there was a group of school children that claimed that they saw gnomes that came out of a swamp on a private estate. So they came out of the trees, etc., and they were driving cars. And they were gnomes. So, and I can absolutely 100% say that I have seen nature beings in some kind of vessel. It looks like they're driving a car. There was one chap that I spoke to that was at a stone circle, and he looked out of his car, looked to the right of his out of his window, and there was a being in a vessel, tiny, an inch in height, and he described him looking like Jiminy Cricket, from Pinocchio. That's what he looked like. And a lot of these beings do look like that. No hair, just a face like Jiminy Cricket. So I sent him some pictures of the beings in the vessel or car. So they're sat in a row, and they travel around the garden. And if you look at them on the camera, you'd think that it was just an insect, you'd assume. But again, if you pause it, you can see them. Their features. But I sent him these pictures, and he said, "Wow, that's exactly what I saw." Jiminy Cricket in a vessel. So these vessels, these cars, don't have wheels or anything like that, but they're going around in them like they're traveling around like they're having or a roller coaster car. It's a bit like that.
Oh man,
it's mind blowing. I know it is.
I don't know if you've listened to the episode Cross Country Fairy Forum with Bonnie and Therese. They talk about these sled-like anti-grav vehicles that the Fae use as well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
It's so weird. It's so weird. Like there's a whole society there. There's technology there. There's like rhythm to life. There's politics. There's, it's like human society. In fact, I would probably argue, I've never been there. I don't know. But I'm just like, what I sense from the Fae, right, is they've got a more evolved society than we do, big time. Mm-hmm. I think that human society is probably low man on the totem pole, to use a West Coast reference.
Yeah. I was so amazed to find out that they got pets, but why not? Yeah. I mean, what?
You know what? Bonnie and Therese also talk about them having pets, and they talk about many things that like this other guest, Alara, who's in direct contact with an elf, talks about. And what's interesting is that like what you are seeing visually matches what some people are hearing about through like a telecommunication type situation, but it's also matching what other people are photographing and seeing as well in the United States, across the entire ocean, a world away, with nothing to do with you. And I like said, I get the privileged position of sitting here on top of Mount Fascinating Fae, and I get to look at all the things coming at me, and I'm starting to see patterns, which, you know, is why I like doing the show at this stage. I started off being like, I just want to hear from other people. And now I'm kind of like getting a little deeper into it, I guess. And I'm sort of like, will I be able to put this on a spreadsheet and column out the attributes and make it make sense? You know, like, I mean, I'm minimizing it into something impossible there, but you get the idea. Can I actually work this out? Is there a logic here that, you know, because like when we were talking a moment ago about fairy tales, fairy research not being satisfying, it's because a lot of it is shrouded in lore and froofy fantasy storytelling, blah, blah, blah. I'm like looking for the person who's seen a 2-dimensional, ultra fast, interdimensional being. That's who I'm trying to talk to, right? And that's why I'm so happy to talk to you.
Yeah. I mean, I really do. I mean, I have spent hours and hours and hours studying, documenting what I see, and I'm convinced it's for a reason. I absolutely am.
You should put that book out, Jem. I really want to encourage you to do it. If you need someone to encourage you, please let it be me. And I'm sure that, you know, this growing audience, like, will bring you back on when there's 20,000 people listening to this show 6 months from now. And you can come back on and then you'll have a huge purchase of your book right off the top. You know?
I mean, writing a book is something I never ever imagined me doing. It's not in my life plan, but I just feel like I don't think there's anybody else. I've not come across anybody else that has got the same knowledge that I have.
No, not like we're talking about. Not like we're talking about. No, I would agree with that. And going back to where we started, like, we were talking about how few podcasts there are on this subject. It's not just podcasts that are in short supply. There's no real good books on it, in my opinion. There's a few speakers, like you mentioned, that I really like, but those speakers tend to be like marginalized into the new age talker category, right?
Yeah.
I actually think that what the fairy topic needs more than anything is these kind of conversations, books like the one that I think you're planning on putting out, rooted in Ring camera footage, rooted in modern, you know, like you're a married woman with 2 kids in the UK. Mm-hmm. Why, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't your life's work to be a new age guru or anything.
No, not at all. I'm too lazy.
You and me both. Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, a book from a person like you has that same je ne sais quoi as a podcast from a person like me, right? Part of the reason this podcast works is because I'm not a fairy guy, you know, to begin with. So I think that's why this podcast works. If I was like, oh, another Joe Hickey Hall, we don't need that. She's already there. Do you know what I'm saying? Right. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, with all that said, you know, I think this has been a beautiful and wonderful conversation here today, Jem. And as we go to sort of wrap up, I'll just share a couple of final words and do some housekeeping, but I will leave you with the last thought to share with the audience. So take a second and think about what you might want to say while I just do some housekeeping here. So for everybody listening, just a huge thanks today for Jem on behalf of all of our human and non-human listeners tuned into Fascinating Fae. Especially big thanks, you know, coming from that perspective of like, hey, I'm just trying to talk about what I am seeing and experiencing here. I really admire that. It's the right way to do things, in my opinion, around this subject matter, you know. So really appreciate that A, you've seen these things, Jem, and B, that you're willing and brave enough to like really get up on the soapbox and talk about it. I think that's really cool of you. So big thanks, super big thanks to Jem tonight on behalf of all the human and non-human listeners tuning into Fascinating Fae. And for those listening that might want to join the conversation, you can reach out to me. Fascinating Fae is my socials pretty much everywhere. You can pretty much find me mostly on Facebook, is I think where I do some commenting and show up. So if you want to actually, you know, touch base with me, that's probably your best bet for a social. But also my email is a great way to send your story, give me a brief of what you might want to talk about on the show. And you can do that at encounters@fascinatingfae.com. And eventually when I do update the photos, I will put some of the photos and videos that Jem has talked about tonight. I do owe Danielle some photos of her creations, and some other people have got some content that I need to put up to go with their episodes as well. And that can always be found at fascinatingfae.com. And just a final note, this show is free. We're just doing it for fun and passion over here. So if you do go visit fascinatingfae.com, there's, you're not going to get hit with an ad or a subscription request. It's just truly where I put the other pictures and liner notes to go with the show. So thanks for letting me do all that housekeeping. I really appreciate that, Jem. I really appreciate your time. I know it's getting late in the UK, so thank you for staying up in your she shed, in your garden, surrounded by gnomes and fairies.
Yeah, they're probably all sat around me in a circle listening.
Well, with that great group energy that you're pulling from, I think the last word is all yours here tonight.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. I absolutely love your podcast, and yeah, it's been an honor, so thank you for your time. It's been fantastic, and if anybody listening can, if they've had a jellyfish that's been launched out of their ivy, then please get in touch with me. I'd love to chat to you, but you are more than welcome if you want to have a look at my YouTube channel. It's called Nature Spirits in My Garden. There's only at the moment about 5 or 6 videos that I've put on there, but I will be adding a few more when I get time. And I do have an Instagram account which is the same, Nature Spirits in My Garden. But if you are interested in having a look at that, then you'll need to friend request me, but perhaps send me a message to say that you heard me chatting on here, or same with the Facebook one as well. And I would love to hear from anybody that has experienced anything similar. So there we go. Thank you so much.
Woke up this morning, I held my head. I'm thinking, where was my warning? I rolled on out of bed, and then I went to see my father. I said, Papa, am I blind? And won't you tell me when I see the view atop this climb? And he said, the summertime is knocking at my door. I'm feeling fine when she's rocking in my boat, and I could happily remain. Now the sun is set, I'm thinking, why am I grieving? It's something I don't get it. But then I went to see my mother. I said, Mama, am I blind? And won't you tell me when I see the view atop this climb? And she said, the summertime is knocking at my door. I'm feeling fine when she's rocking in my boat, and I could happily remain. But pages turn as seasons change. No one can avoid the rain. We just wait, and the night will come to end. Time is knocking pages turn and seasons change, but no one can avoid the rain. We just wait, and the night will come to end. The summertime is not